The VS Code search core feature can be a wonderful friend to developers if they know how to utilize its capabilities. I'm currently in a React TypeScript code base, but my tutorial will work for other computer languages as well. To start a global search, you simply click on the magnifying glass icon. If you're coming from Vim or NeoVim and you need a warm, fuzzy feeling, you can use Command-Shift-F to start your search. When you click into the search input field, you have the option of using the up and down arrow for search history. By default, when you enter a search term into the search input field, VS Code will conduct a case-insensitive search and will look for any part of the search term within the string. We can ask VS Code to match the capitalization of the search term. They call that matching or match case. Or we can ask VS Code to match the exact whole word, or both. I will elaborate more on using regular expression in here in a few moments. In the files to include input field, I can further narrow down where I want to look for my search term and in which files. But what if I wanted to search for crispy bacon, not within the source directory, but only within node modules? I want to exclude any pork product from the source directory. Well, in that case, I go into the files to exclude input field and type in source to exclude it. In this TypeScript project, I do have some JavaScript files for configuration purposes, including this ESLintRC CJS file. Now, if all I wanted was for VS Code to show me only my JavaScript file and my CJS file, then I really don't have to use search for that. I can use Command P and then type in .cjs, and then it'll return all of the JavaScript and CJS file for me. The project that I'm showing you here is a relatively small project. What if you were working on a project that has 2, 3, or 4 times the files, the number of files that I'm showing you here? In that case, doing a Command P to look for an extension isn't the most practical approach. Let's go back to the search feature, and I will point out the biggest quirk about the search feature in VS Code. And I'm willing to bet that most of you are here because of this quirk. So let's say that I want VS Code to show me all of the JavaScript file and all of the CJS file that are in this TypeScript project that are not in the node modules directory. Obviously, node modules came from NPM, so we don't want to be messing around with that. Intuitively, your glob pattern would look something like this, right? So 2 stars mean to look recursively. 1 star means to look at just a single level. And then I want to group JavaScript and CJS. Make sure that there are no space here, okay? Make sure there are no space between the comma. If there's a space between the comma, that's a syntax error. It's a silent but deadly syntax error. It's an error, but it doesn't tell you that it's an error. So, and I mentioned this in another video like last year. Anyhow, so you would think that it would give me those 3 files that I have, right? But it's not showing me anything. The reason for that is because there's a quirk in the VS Code search. You have to supply a space, right? Because it's not, the search is not firing off because there's nothing in this input box. Because I'm not searching, I'm only expecting to find files, not an actual search term. And so as a result, it does get fired because there's no search term here. So you have to add an extra space. Then it will correctly return the three file types for me. Now, obviously, this is a trivial search because you can do a Command P and it'll give you the similar. But again, what what if you had 3 times the number of code files that I have here? So here's what I mean by having the extra space after the comma in the glob pattern, right? If there's a space after the comma here, then it'll stop at JS. It's not reading the rest of this glob pattern. So you have to remove that extra space there. Make sure your space is only here though. Okay. Well, if that's all you're here for, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you want to learn about the adding regular expression to your search term, stick around. So just to be clear about the search depth here, these asterisks, I call them stars just to be cute, but the asterisk means a wildcard. So what I meant by recursive searching is that if there are a nested JS file or CJS file, this will search for the nested files in nested folders as well, rather than just one folder. If I did not have the two stars or the two asterisks, and I just have one, it'll only search one level. So this glob pattern is very common for doing your searches for actual search term instead of just bringing back file types. Now, obviously, I am excluding the node modules, but in those rare instances where you just want information, obviously, we don't ever want to modify anything in the node modules, but if you want to study what's inside the node modules for a certain package, to look for security vulnerabilities or circular pattern or what have you, whatever your situation may be, then obviously we want to do the inverse, right? We want to include the node modules in here and exclude the source. So the inverse of what we have been doing. And these modules, sometimes they have the add certain package, add Firebase or whatever, something like that. So you can narrow it down even more like that. So knowing what we know now, searching for use effect hooks in our components, say to switch over to 10-stack query for data fetching should be an easy task. Regular expression is a separate science unto itself. The main thing that I want you to know is that we can pass regular expression as a search term in VS Code if we activate this icon here. I think that it is virtually impossible to memorize every conceivable regular expression pattern in our head. Fortunately, in today's world, we have pretty good tools that can interpret English words into a regular expression for us that we can inject into code or into an input field. In the case of search input fields, we just need to recognize the general pattern, the general formation of the regular expression. So in our code base, we have markdown files, which contains bullet points. Now in markdown file, as well as in text files, bullet points are represented as minus sign, plus sign, or asterisk. All three of those can represent a bullet point. Now, in well-written documentation for markdown files, you typically see an indentation for bullet points. See an indentation on the left. See that? See how this bullet point starts here instead of here. So that's one indentation there. And then within the point itself, there is a space between the point itself and the word. The first letter of the word is a point. So indentation here and space here. So we have to account for this in our regular expression pattern. Let's craft a regular expression for our input box here. So whenever I work with regular expression, the first thing I do is to declare a regular expression literal. I always do that just to get the lay of the land. And because we are starting from left to right, because this is English, I'm going to add a caret to signify that we want to start from the beginning of the line, from left to right. Additionally, we have to account for the indentation at the beginning of the bullet point. So I'm going to account for that by adding a space and then a wildcard, because that bullet point could be one space, like an actual one tap of the space bar, or an indentation or a tab space. I don't know. So I'll add a wildcard there to handle all scenarios. By the way, I'm using this bacon.txt file as sort of like my scratch pad. So I mentioned earlier that the minus symbol, the asterisk, as well as the plus symbol all represent bullet points in Markdown files. So then what we could do in regular expressions is that we can group all three of these symbology into one. And we can declare grouping by using square brackets. Next, I need to account for the space between the bullet and the first letter of the bullet point. So I'll add a space, at least one space, and then I'm going to tell the matcher to read all of the words in the bullet point and then stop the match at the end of the bullet point. That should be easy enough to do. It would be dot plus and then $sign. So now let's cut the regular expression and paste it into the input box. And as you can see here, because I did not tell VS Code specific directory to look into, other than to exclude node modules, is giving me all of the file names that contains bullet points to include the bacon.txt file, this file here. And as before, we can tell VS Code to only look for bullet points that is inside of Markdown files or inside of TXT file, whatever your choice. We can also do multiple exclude in VS Code search. So you notice here that I have Bacon Markdown and bacon.txt files, which contain bullets inside of the source directory in assets. But I also have a Markdown file with bullet points in the README. If I was interested only in the bullet points in the README file and ignore these two, then I could do a comma delimited directory in here, and it'll exclude source and only gives me the bullet points in README outside of the source directory. And you can add as many as you want in here. If you're a staunch Vim user or NeoVim user, I don't know if VS Code is enough to draw you away from your beloved Vims. But for people who are happy using an IDE, hopefully this was enlightening for you. Of course, you can also grep in the terminal here as well. Okay, I have a video for that. Okay, my dear friends, I hope that was helpful for you. Please consider subscribing to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything, completely free. And I'll provide you with hours and hours of free entertainment and good humor. Thank you for watching. I hope you had fun. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.